Imagine this, you're sitting across from her at a cafe. You've been talking, laughing, carrying the weight of the conversation on your shoulders. You're leaning in. She's leaning back. You ask if she wants to hang out again, and she smiles not with warmth, but with politeness. She doesn't say no. Instead, she says, "I'll let you know. That's the dagger, but it's hidden behind silk." That's how women reject you without saying the word, and you walk home wondering, replaying the smile, dissecting every syllable, as if buried inside was a secret code. There wasn't. It was a soft rejection designed so she avoids being the villain, while you're left bleeding quietly. The truth is, brutal women rarely reject you with clarity, because clarity makes them accountable. A no closes the door. A maybe leaves you lingering in the hallway, holding the weight of hope. And hope is where men waste their years. You know it's happened to you. That girl who kept texting back but never committed. The one who was just so busy but somehow had time for everything else. She didn't tell you no. She gave you the slow bleed, the rejection that robs you of self-respect, drip by drip. Psychologically, it's genius. Ambiguity keeps you trapped, because men are wired to chase certainty. Your mind fills the silence with possibility. You tell yourself she's shy. You rationalize that maybe her last relationship hurt her. You invent excuses for her absence while she never has to risk saying what she's already decided she doesn't want you. Every "we'll see," every "not tonight," every slow reply, it's not a scheduling issue, it's an interest issue. But the longer you ignore that, the more you erode your own strength. Here's the tactic: stop rewarding uncertainty. The moment you hear phrases like, "maybe," "we'll see," or "I'm not sure," recognize them for what they are: rejections dressed as politeness. Don't double down. Don't keep trying to prove yourself. That's what she subconsciously expects, that you'll keep auditioning for a role she already decided not to cast you in. Instead, you withdraw your effort completely. Indifference is the cure, because when you remove your energy, one of two things will happen. Either she vanishes, which saves you months of wasted time, or she chases, and then you know her words were excuses, not walls. Either way, you win by refusing to stand in limbo. Think about how many times you've been strung along by someone who wasn't ready. Do you realize that not ready with you often means ready for someone else tomorrow? Women rarely say no because they don't want to feel cruel. But cruelty is exactly what the slow rejection is. It keeps you orbiting a star that will never give you heat. And you tell yourself you're patient, but patience here is self-betrayal. Men who wait in ambiguity lose years, confidence, and edge. The rejection wasn't the no. The rejection was the vagueness itself. Once you understand that, you stop asking, you stop pushing, and you stop clinging. You walk away at the first sign of hesitation. That's power. You have to train your ear for these patterns. Listen closely, not to her words, but to her consistency. A woman who wants you will carve time out of stone. A woman who doesn't will give you polite fog. And when you mistake that fog for softness, you end up lost in it. If she says, "let's see," you see it for what it is. If she says, "I'm just really busy," you hear the truth: you're not important enough. If she says, "I'm not ready to date right now," you stop listening and watch her actions. Because actions will always tell you she's ready for someone else, just not you. The hardest part for most men isn't spotting it, it's leaving, because leaving feels like quitting. And you've been taught that persistence wins. But in dating, persistence past indifference is humiliation. You're not proving loyalty, you're proving you have no options. And the woman who once gave you vague answers now knows she owns you. That's when the emotional games begin. That's when she keeps you on the shelf for validation. while she invests her energy in someone else. And you'll be too deep in denial to notice. Unless you decide today that ambiguity is your line in the sand. Have you ever recognized yourself in this exact situation? What happened next? Which one of these vague rejections have you heard the most? And how long did you wait before walking away? What's the hardest part for you, spotting the rejection, or having the courage to leave? You've probably felt it before, that hollow frustration when she doesn't actually reject you, but she also doesn't accept you. She leaves the door cracked open just enough so you don't slam it shut. She replies, but only after hours. She agrees to hang out, but never locks down a time. She tells you, you're such a great guy, but her actions show indifference. This isn't coincidence. It's a tactic, conscious or unconscious, that shifts the burden onto you. She never has to feel the sting of saying no, because she knows you'll torture yourself with the question mark she leaves behind. And here's where most men self-destruct. You treat her vagueness like a challenge. You think if you just show up more, prove yourself harder, wait longer, she'll eventually come around. That's your pride tricking you. You take it personally, as if her lack of desire is a test of your worth. It isn't. It's a reflection of her disinterest, nothing more. But the moment you make her uncertainty into your mission, you hand over your dignity. You become the man begging for scraps while convincing himself it's a meal. The psychology behind this is brutal. People value what they invest in. When you invest time, energy, and emotion into someone who hasn't given you clarity, you actually increase your attachment. That's why she doesn't need to say no. You're doing the work of trapping yourself. You're filling in her silence with hope. And every time you do, you reinforce the chain. She can feel it. Women have an instinct for sensing when a man is hooked deeper than he should be. That's when she knows she can keep you in orbit without committing. You're no longer the prize. You're the safety net. So how do you break free from this loop? You flip the script. Instead of chasing certainty from her, you create it for yourself. The rule is simple if she's unclear. You decide for her, you don't ask. Do you want to hang out and then wait 3 days for a half-hearted answer? You say, I'm free Friday. Join or don't. And if she drifts, you move on instantly. No sulking, no resentment, no waiting by your phone like a starving man. You reclaim your time by making clarity your standard. If she can't give it, she doesn't get access to you. This isn't just about confidence. It's about survival in modern dating. Think of how many men get drained because they mistake polite rejection for shyness. They keep investing, waiting, buying dinners, texting long paragraphs, while she gives nothing back. She isn't cruel, she's comfortable. She knows you'll always be there, so she doesn't have to decide. And you think patience is noble, when in truth, patience is just another word for self-deception. Here's a practical strategy: set a hard limit on ambiguity. 3 unclear signals and you're done. If she cancels twice, doesn't lock in a plan, or replies without effort, that's all you need to know. You don't need closure. You don't need a speech. You need discipline. Walk away before your mind convinces you to wait for someone who already rejected you without saying it. Because every day you waste, there is a day you don't invest in women who would actually choose you. And let's get brutally honest, if she wanted you, you'd know. She wouldn't hesitate. She wouldn't, maybe you. She wouldn't risk you walking away. Women fight for the men they desire. They rearrange their schedule. They find a way. They give energy. If you don't feel that from her, then she's already decided. She's just too polite to give you the word. That's why you must train yourself to hear no inside every maybe. That's why you must treat hesitation as rejection. Because the man who respects himself doesn't beg for clarity. He creates it. When you start living this way, something shifts. You stop being the man who waits around hoping she'll finally choose him. You become the man who chooses himself first. And suddenly, women sense it. They feel the difference. Your time, your energy, your attention becomes scarce. And scarcity is attractive. You stop bleeding out your value in ambiguity. You start holding it close until someone proves they're worthy of it. That's not arrogance. That's survival. That's the only way to keep your dignity intact in a world where women reject you without saying no. So ask yourself, how many times have you mistaken "I'll let you know" for genuine interest? How many weeks or months have you wasted waiting for someone who never gave you clarity? And if you're being honest, are you still waiting on someone right now, secretly hoping she'll change her mind? Some women will never say no to you because they want to keep you in a state of emotional suspension. Think about the girl who keeps you around with just enough breadcrumbs to make you stay. She likes your attention, your validation, maybe even your willingness to help her when she needs something. But she doesn't like you enough to actually choose you. That's why she'll never reject you outright. To her, rejection would mean losing the comfort of knowing you're there. And so she rejects you in silence by withholding affection, delaying replies, dodging plans while never actually closing the door. The dangerous part is how your mind interprets this behavior. Instead of seeing the rejection, you see potential. You mistake silence for mystery, distance for challenge, and excuses for circumstances. You tell yourself she's just tired, just busy, just stressed. But deep down, you know the truth. If she cared, you'd feel it. If she wanted you, you wouldn't be confused. Her actions wouldn't need interpretation. Yet the ambiguity keeps you trapped because you think your patience will prove your worth. You start believing that waiting is loyalty. But waiting is only loyalty when she's earned it. In this case, waiting is submission. The emotional trap works because it exploits your fear of loss. You don't want to lose the little you're getting: the occasional reply, the casual compliment, the smile across the room. You cling to these crumbs as if they mean progress, but they're not progress. They're placeholders. She gives you just enough to keep you on standby while she invests her real energy somewhere else. And the longer you stay, the more you become her fallback, her second option, her safe harbor when everything else fails. That's not love. That's exploitation, and you're complicit if you allow it. Here's the shift you need. Stop interpreting hesitation as something you can fix. It's not about you needing to be funnier, richer, or more interesting. It's about her lack of desire. The longer you personalize her disinterest, the deeper you'll dig your hole. The practical move is this: when she pulls away, don't chase. When she delays, don't wait. When she gives you vague answers, treat them as final answers. That's how you take back control. You stop feeding her with the one thing she's using you for your energy. Once you pull that away, you'll see the truth instantly. If she wanted you, she'll make it clear. If she didn't, she'll vanish. Either way, you win. This is why indifference is your most powerful weapon. Indifference doesn't mean bitterness. It means you stop over-investing where there's no return. You stop begging for clarity and start enforcing standards. Instead of asking, "Does she like me?" you start asking, "Does she earn me?" That shift alone changes the dynamic. Because when you stop chasing, you expose her real intentions. If she was keeping you as an option, she loses her grip. If she was genuinely conflicted, she'll step up. But if she was never interested at all, you've saved yourself months or years of wasted energy. Every man has to face this truth. At some point, you don't lose when a woman rejects you. You lose when you keep giving to someone who already has. You don't lose when you walk away from ambiguity. You lose when you stay, hoping that her silence will eventually become a yes. That's not persistence. That's self-abandonment. And it's the fastest way to become invisible to women who might actually want you. Because the more you cling to the wrong one, the less space you have for the right one. So here's a test you can apply in your own life. Look at the last 3 interactions you had with her. Were they filled with effort, energy, and initiative from both sides? Or were they driven by you, with her giving the bare minimum in return? If you're honest, you'll know the answer, and once you see the imbalance, you can't unsee it. You'll either keep choosing weakness, or you'll finally choose yourself. That choice is where your real power begins. Have you ever been the fallback guy without realizing it until much later? What's the longest you've ever waited for someone who never truly wanted you? And when you finally walked away, how did it change the way you saw yourself? The cruelest rejection isn't the word no. It's the silence that stretches, the vague excuses, the way she lets you carry all the weight of trying while she contributes almost nothing. Some women are masters at this, not because they're evil, but because they've learned that soft rejection is easier for them, easier than facing your disappointment, easier than admitting the truth, easier than risking conflict. But what's easy for her becomes hell for you, because you're left in the gray zone, a place where you're neither chosen nor released. And that gray zone destroys men more than a clear no ever could. Think about how it feels every time you text. You wait hours for a reply. Every time you suggest a plan, she dodges or says she's too busy. Yet when you finally pull back, she throws you a little spark, a compliment, a random message, a "Hey stranger," just enough to pull you back in. That's not interest, that's control. It's her way of keeping you orbiting, just in case she ever wants you later. And if you accept it, you're not a man in her eyes. You're an emotional battery. She plugs into you when she's bored, lonely, or in need of validation. And when she's done, she unplugs and disappears again. You're not being courted, you're being drained. Men fall into this trap because they confuse crumbs for connection. You've been told that persistence is noble, that women need time to open up, that patience is the mark of a strong man. But patience with someone who has no desire isn't strength. It's weakness disguised as virtue. You think you're fighting for love, but really, you're just fighting her indifference. And indifference always wins, because indifference means she's not invested enough to lose. You're the only one risking anything. That's why she'll never say no. She doesn't need to. You're already rejecting yourself by staying. So here's the brutal tactic: learn to reject the gray zone. Treat uncertainty as the enemy. If her interest is unclear, you walk. If her words and actions don't align, you walk. If you feel like you're auditioning for her attention, you walk. Because the longer you stay in the fog, the weaker you get. The longer you stay in the fog, the easier you are to control. A man who respects himself doesn't wait for permission to leave. He leaves at the first sign of disrespect. And nothing is more disrespectful than being strung along. And understand, this rejection isn't your enemy. Rejection is clarity. Rejection is freedom. The men who fear rejection are the ones who suffer the most. Because instead of facing the sting of a quick no, they bleed out over weeks, months, even years of polite avoidance. Stop seeing rejection as an attack on your value. Start seeing it as a filter. Every time a woman rejects you, she reveals she wasn't meant for you. That's not a loss, that's a victory. The true loss is wasting yourself on someone who never intended to choose you. The shift is simple but life-changing. You stop asking, "Does she want me?" and start asking, "Do I want her behavior?" If her behavior is avoidance, vagueness, delay, excuses, that's your answer. Not her words, not her smiles, not her half-hearted texts. Her behavior tells you everything, and once you see it, you stop giving her the chance to keep you stuck. You don't need closure. You don't need a dramatic goodbye. You just need to stop feeding energy into a dead connection. That's how you reclaim yourself. That's how you turn soft rejection into hard clarity. And the irony, when you start living like this, women notice. The ones who are using you as a backup suddenly panic when you're no longer available. They'll chase, they'll test, they'll try to reel you back, but you won't fall for it anymore because you'll know the game. And the women who actually want you, they'll show you from the start. They'll make effort, they'll value your time, they won't risk losing you. That's the difference between being rejected without a word and being chosen without hesitation. So let me ask you, how many times have you mistaken a crumb of attention for real interest? How many times have you told yourself she just needs more time, when in reality she had no intention at all? And most importantly, are you ready to stop letting women reject you silently and start rejecting the gray zone yourself? Here's the harshest truth you need to face. The reason these silent rejections cut so deep isn't because of her. It's because of you. It's because you keep giving value to someone who isn't giving it back. You keep letting your imagination outrun her actions. You cling to the idea of her instead of the reality in front of you. That's why you suffer. That's why you spiral into overthinking. It's not her maybe that destroys you. It's your refusal to accept what her maybe already means. Think back on the times you let it drag on. You stared at your phone, checking if she finally replied. You reread old messages, analyzing every emoji as if it was a code. You told your friends, she's different, even though her behavior looked exactly like every disinterested woman before her. You were already rejected. But because she didn't say the word, you kept yourself on the hook. That's the cost of not demanding clarity. You sell your time, your confidence, and your dignity to keep alive a hope that doesn't exist. The psychology is brutal here. Women know on some level that vagueness is safer than rejection. It protects their image. It avoids conflict. It lets them slip out without guilt. But what they protect themselves from, you end up absorbing. You take the confusion, the humiliation, the wasted time. And because you fear direct rejection, you convince yourself this is better, but it's not better. It's worse. A clean no wounds once. An unclear maybe bleeds you 1,000 times. So what's the strategy? You become the man who refuses to participate in ambiguity. When she gives you half interest, you don't reward it. When she disappears for days, you don't welcome her back with enthusiasm. When she avoids making plans, you don't ask again. You make your standard clear through action, reciprocity, or nothing. That's the filter that saves your energy. That's the shield that stops you from becoming someone's emotional backup. And here's where the war in dating really is. It's not you versus women. It's you versus your own weakness. It's you versus the part of you that would rather cling to false hope than face uncomfortable truth. That part of you whispers, wait, maybe she'll change. But men who live in maybe never win. Men who demand clarity, who walk away when it's absent, always come out stronger. Because while one man wastes a year orbiting someone who doesn't care, another man walks away in the first month and builds his value elsewhere. One bleeds out, the other sharpens himself. Detach emotionally, that's your weapon. Detachment doesn't mean being cold or heartless. It means you stop hinging your worth on a woman's approval. You stop letting her indecision dictate your confidence. You stop seeing her hesitation as a puzzle you need to solve. Instead, you see it for what it is, rejection disguised as softness. And instead of fighting it, you thank it. Because the quicker you see it, the quicker you cut it off, the quicker you save yourself. And understand this: walking away from someone who won't choose you isn't weakness. It's the deepest strength a man can have. Most men can't do it. They wait, they chase, they hope, they drown. But the man who can turn his back with calm indifference is the man women respect. Even the one who rejected him feels it. Because nothing unsettles a woman more than a man who doesn't beg for clarity. Nothing communicates strength louder than silence in the face of games. So when you see her delay, when you feel her pulling back, when she gives you fog instead of fire, you already know the truth. Don't beg for a word she won't give. Don't plead for closure. Don't demand an explanation. Just decide. Decide that you'll never stay where you're not chosen. Decide that your time, your energy, and your presence are too valuable to be wasted on uncertainty. That decision is where your power is born. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.